Okay, well, we're going to get started. So my name is Josh Walker, and I am the president of the American Fork Chamber of Commerce. Christina Wiesman is hopping on soon. She's dealing with some technical difficulties, but we'll look forward to having her on relatively soon. So, and our guest presenter for today is Ralph Clegg. He is the executive director for the Utah County Health Department. And so just to kind of cover a couple things, Ralph, before we get started, as most of you are aware, or hopefully all of you are aware, we did just go from the orange stage of the color code for the state to the yellow stage. And as the governor and many people have talked about, it's often a dial, like a dimmer, where we have to be cognizant that it could move from one stage to the other depending on how things are going. And I'm sure Ralph will have some things to say about that. So, at the end of the call, we can share some of the resources that we've created specifically for this stage. But I think in the meantime, we're just going to move forward and turn the time over to you, Ralph, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little history of yourself, and then, do your presentation. That would be fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Josh. I'm glad to be with you and the good folks out in the north part of our county and the businesses where everybody's working so hard to make everything work and stay in business and keep people safe and all those challenges that we're facing at this time. I've worked at the County Health Department for about a little over 37 years now. I've been the director for about 4.5 years. And I've appreciated all the support that we receive from businesses and from individuals in the county, particularly at this time that's very difficult for all of us, I know. I was asked to talk a little bit about standard practices. At the time they asked me to talk about it, we were anticipating going from red to orange, and now really we've gone from orange to yellow. So again, the key is probably just to be conservative and careful as we open things up. Yes, we definitely want to open up things up. We want people to get back to work wherever possible. And what's going to be important for employers is that they monitor their staff. If there's people who are sick, they need to really be sent home. It's really difficult for businesses if they have a lot of their employees get sick and one person can spread the disease to many. And so if there's people who are sick, they really need to be sent home. Work with them on their sick leave or whatever you can do to help them. But it's really important that if they're sick, that they go home. Personal hygiene is going to be important in the workplace. So we're sanitizing common touch areas. That extra cleaning is done to make sure that the disease isn't spread through people touching other surfaces that may have been contaminated. And so those things will be really important for businesses to follow as well. And keeping employees from congregating in areas is going to be essential. I know that makes it tough to have a break room sometimes, but maybe find different ways to have a break room situation. Fortunately, with the weather improving, they can often do that outside. But keeping people from congregating wherever possible. And if you serve the public, it's going to be really important that if you have difficulty with maintaining a social distance or physical distance, that masks are worn by employees and hopefully that those who are coming in for the services will wear masks as well. And for your employees, if they have difficulty maintaining a 6-foot distance between employees, it's important for them to have masks on as well to try to minimize. Nothing we do will prevent the disease entirely, but to minimize the effects of the disease wherever we can. Telecommuting is still an important option, and we encourage businesses to look at that as an option as they can. It's good to have a workplace coordinator that kind of coordinates COVID-19 issues and their impact in the workplace and make sure that they do that. But, for me, the bottom line always is that businesses come up with the best ideas on their own. And it's been interesting to see how many different practices have been put into place by businesses. As I went to Home Depot the other day, I was in line for a while outside before I could get in, as they were trying to control the number of people in to try to help with some separation of people. You know, there's business in Pleasant Grove that turned their movie theater kind of into a drive-in theater, which has been very successful for them. And so recognizing that the best ideas always come from businesses themselves as they innovate and try to do things as best they can. You know, online meetings is often the term now. Everybody has become very well acquainted with Zoom and GoToMeetings, it seems like. And all of those things that, you know, have changed the way we do business. But they're going to be important to do that in the future. But again, monitor your staff. If they're sick, make sure they stay home. If they get infected with COVID, it's really essential that they be isolated for a couple of weeks till they get well, and those who may have been in close contact with them, be quarantined for a period of time, so that we can control this disease. Which as hard as it is to understand with everything that's going on, Utah is doing quite well compared to the rest of the country in infections and cases, and even in recovery and businesses. So our congratulations goes out to all who've worked so hard to make this work. And so if there's any particular questions you have, I'll be happy to address those anyway I can.
One thing that you mentioned right off the start is a COVID coordinator. So, you know, as businesses look at thinking outside the box, creating different things, what do they need to coordinate with you? Is there someone specific that they would reach out with the Utah County Health Department saying, we're thinking of doing it this way. Can we move forward in this direction?
Well, you know, they certainly can call us and ask us those types of questions. Tyler Plew, Plewe, from our staff is taking most of those calls from businesses. You know, his email is tylerp@utahcounty.gov, and he'd be happy to. I'd be happy to respond in any way that I can as well. I think, you know, for most people or most businesses, if you look at the general guidelines for employers that the governor's office has put out, and just stick to those and try to follow those as closely as you can, you're going to do well. The coordinator is probably just helps to make sure that, you know, if you have a practice in place for checking the employee's temperature or something like that, they can kind of coordinate that and work with that, or making sure that there's not congregation of employees, and doing those things. And that depends probably on the size of the workplace too. You know, small workplace, that may be the business owner that's having to do it all, which we know puts an extra burden on them. But every business is unique. Every business is different. And I think every business can find unique solutions to issues. But, you know, making sure, again, employees are practicing good sanitation, washing their hands, using hand sanitizer, providing hand sanitizer for the employees is probably an important thing. They're masking up as possible, and where practical, and those types of things.
So as we go into some of the businesses, we do notice that some have their employees with masks, some don't at all. What are the, you know, recommendations are masks, but if a person goes into a company and they're like, okay, I don't really feel good about this, none of their employees have masks. I mean, what's the step? Just don't do business there? Or do they say, hey, can you guys be in the guidance of the health department? Any kind of recommendations on that?
Well, certainly we recommend, as we get calls like that the customer talk to the business and say, hey, listen, why, you know, this is important. Why aren't you doing it? But you know, I think the customer speaks the loudest. Businesses will generally respond to their customers, at least if they want to stay in business and be profitable. And so, you know, I think it's always better if a business just is proactive and takes the steps that have been outlined from the governor and follows those steps, and then they don't have to worry about whether the customers are going to complain or not.
Yeah. So Christina did make it onto the call, so I'd like to welcome her on as well. Christina, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Okay. So she's been dealing with some bandwidth issues. In fact, my screen says her bandwidth is low right now. So, but she spent a lot of time working on this document, coordinating with the, like Ralph has mentioned, that document from the governor. We've actually taken a lot of our the information, or she has, from other chambers as well. So we recommend, and we can send people that link. So Ralph, in working, we talked with you on the phone the other day, but we've the biggest question, I think, is as we start to get into larger gatherings. So the guidelines say 50, no more than 50 people in a gathering, but maintaining social distance. So in my mind, there's not a lot of facilities out there that can hold 50 people and keep the 6-foot guidelines. But it also has kind of some provisions saying, depending on the business, as long as you're maintaining the social distancing, you can go above 50. Is that correct, or am I reading that wrong?
Yeah, and that depends a lot on capacity. Again, as long as you can maintain, 6-foot distancing, they can certainly go over that. And say a theater, if they have that big a theater. When you think about it, though, it's 6 feet in front, 6 feet behind, 6 feet each side, and so that kind of limits a lot of things, like a rodeo, how many people can actually be in there, or an outdoor theater, or even something that is very similar to that. And so, the key is the social distancing. The 50 refers to more kind of random type, non-sponsored type events. Hopefully, the sponsored events will design themselves so that social distancing can take place, either by ticketing or in some other way, which the theaters certainly can do by ticketing. But yeah, that's an illustration of how things haven't just gone totally open. It's still we still want to avoid large crowds, and particularly places where there can't be social distancing. So it's important that continues, so that one person doesn't make many people sick.
Right. So, and I've seen sides on both sides of the argument there. A lot of people are complaining, saying just open things up and let it go, and that'll help herd immunity happen faster. And I've got the other side. I watch the governor's call almost every day, and so you've got both sides battling each other on Facebook or wherever they're battling, saying we're being, not very smart about opening things up like we are. So it's kind of this really difficult happy medium to find. But, can you talk a little bit about the herd immunity and what that means? And, in my mind, I don't think that herd immunity really happens until, we can find some sort of vaccine that helps quicken that. But I'm not a doctor, or I don't deal with those things. So can you talk on that a little bit more?
Sure. Herd immunity happens when a majority of the people, probably 60-80% have had the disease or been vaccinated or something else out that that's helped them to get that immunity. And that's assuming that immunity is built. This virus is a novel virus, so it's a new virus, and so they're still trying to make some determinations on it. Some of the folks that got the disease on the ship there in New York are now testing positive again, and what they don't know is whether they've been reinfected or whether that infection has just continued asymptomatically for some period of time. So there's a lot of study that's going to have to go on before we get a real handle on this. But so we don't know how herd immunity will come from this, whether by infecting everyone, if that gives us the herd immunity or not. We just don't know yet. And so, like you described, it is a delicate balance between the economy and the lives of those who are affected by the disease. It's particularly essential for our most vulnerable in our populations, those who are elderly or those who have other immunocompromised conditions or other health conditions such as heart disease or treatment for cancer or diabetes, those types of things in our community. So, yeah, it is a delicate balance between the two, and fortunately, at least at this time, we're moving toward more of balance with businesses getting back up and operating, because yeah, there's effects from there's health effects caused by people being unemployed and those other things as well. So all those things are a concern, and so hopefully this is the best balance at this time.
Now, I know in the business community itself, there's been discussion. What kind of authority do you have at the health department? We know of a business that forced their employees to come. We actually have a business in American Fork that's dealing with a lawsuit right now, saying that they were being forced to work. When I don't know all the details, but at what point do you have to step in and say, okay, sorry, but we're going to have to close you up until you get in compliance?
Well, our first effort is to try to educate. We really think that once people understand, and perhaps sometimes they haven't understood, when they understand how serious this can be, they'll change. We don't like to see lawsuits and all these other things that may come out of all of this, but our goal is to keep people in business but be in business safely and operating properly. And if we can do that, then that's all we're really for. Now, obviously, we do have some more regulatory authority over places we permit, such as restaurants and tanning salons and body art and swimming pools, those places that we do permit. But by and large, we find that people are pretty compliant. Yeah, there's always a few that push the limits, but our hope is that once they understand how important it is, that they'll come into compliance, and that's our real goal. We don't have any desire to be heavy-handed in this. Our desire is to help businesses operate successfully.
Very good. So we did have a question come in on the chat. They're wondering, is there a spray or chemical that can be used in an apartment that is effective and not dangerous?
Well, probably the most effective sanitizer is a bleach and water solution, about 100 parts per million. And depending on the bleach you get, you'd have to check to see what that is. In wiping down surfaces with using that concentration, I'd make sure that I was wearing gloves to protect myself. Again, bleach is bleach. And so you have to be careful what kind of surfaces you use on. You don't want to use it on carpet because they'll change the color of your carpet, or upholstery, those types of things. And so it's usually the hard surfaces that would be the major source of potential infection. So, and those those high touch surfaces, switches, handrails, those types of things. And so that's probably the best and most inexpensive sanitizing solution. There are others, quaternary ammonium products and some others, iodine even. But I think as far as availability, bleach and water solution is probably the best bet, unless you can get something that's already in a spray bottle that has a similar outcome.
What about they're asking specifically for fabric. Is there something else that you can use on fabric?
Fabric, the best thing probably to do is to steam clean fabric with something, with a hot steam. That may be the best you can do. I don't know that there's any sanitizing product that would work really well on fabric without harming the fabric itself. Gotcha.
Okay. Well, we're always learning more about this and how businesses can operate. Our biggest goal, obviously, with the chamber, and we have a call every Monday morning with chambers across the state, is to try to get the economy going as quickly and as possible while still maintaining these guidelines and these practices. Are you seeing any kind of, or hearing from businesses saying, hey, any indication on as we open up, or one side feels like green might actually happen for a small window? I guess what I'm getting at is, do you see there being a resurgence in the fall? We hear a lot of talk about that.
Well, again, novel virus, we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. There's always that possibility. There's some that are projecting that. And so all we can do is try to prepare for it. We really don't want to go backwards in this situation or go back to an orange or red condition. I think the goal is to maintain it. The yellow go to the new green, or the new back to new normal, I guess is what they're calling it. And the only way we can do that is with cooperation of everybody involved. Everybody needs to cooperate and help. Practice good social distancing, physical distancing. Do all those things. When they're sick, stay home. If they're sick with COVID symptoms, get tested. Yeah, it may mean that you need to be isolated for a short period of time, but we want you to get better. We want you to keep from spreading the disease to others. And it's those kinds of things that are going to sustain us long term. If we get in a condition where we go back to where we were when this started, that's not good for any of us. That's not good for our health. That's not good for our businesses. It's not good for our economy. And we don't want that. We don't want that for our businesses, for sure.
Yeah. So we have another comment. I've heard that vitamin D has some effect. Have you heard this, or can you speak to that?
Well, there's all kinds of proposals out there. You see proposals for testing. You see proposals for miracle cures or something that might help. And you heard of it when the governor had mentioned that someone in the state had ordered a product that they thought might work, and they had to go back and not, because it's unproven. Most of that's unproven. Again, it's a novel virus. It's unproven. The best thing we can do is just try to be healthy, as citizens, get the rest of the nutrition we need, and try to be healthy. That's probably our best bet at this point. They are working on a vaccine. They are working on medicines. When those will come out, it's still some time off, I think, for those things. Lots of studies being done. The University of Utah has been doing some study down here on antibodies, just try to see how the antibody levels are in people in Utah County, and they're actually doing some in Salt Lake County as well, and try to see how people develop antibodies to the disease. So there's a lot of things going on, but stay tuned, I guess, is the best thing I can say. Time will tell as we become more experienced with this, and there's more testing and a better understanding of what the COVID-19 is doing in our bodies and in our communities.
So we have a good question from Scott. He said, obviously we're talking all about COVID-19, but he said, what other infections are still prominent in the community, and are all these cleanliness precautions things we should have been doing all along?
Well, the cleanliness precautions are probably good things to do all along. Those are good things. Obviously, we're coming to the end of the flu season. Typically, the influenza will burn out about end of springtime as we approach summer, and so. There are other things in our communities we're concerned. This has had an impact in a lot of different ways. For example, as we approach the reopening of school, which we're hoping that will happen this fall, because of this virus, a lot of people haven't been out, and kids haven't been getting their immunizations. It's going to be important that we catch up on immunizations for school to reopen. We don't want to have outbreaks of pertussis or even measles or something else, because our immunization levels have waned due to people not getting out and getting these immunizations done. And so, there's a lot of things we have to be concerned about, and we're continuing to monitor those. COVID-19 is maybe one of 90 diseases we track in Utah County, communicable diseases. And so there's always communicable diseases out there in various forms and fashions that show up. And so we're tracking all of those to try to prevent them as much as we can in the community. It's just right now, COVID-19 is the elephant in the room, I guess.
Right. Well, and so we had Chris ask, what about dealing with side effects of a vaccine? Does that really come into play much when you're looking at introducing a vaccine?
Well, part of what they do when they're developing a new vaccine is they have to do a lot of testing to see if there's some adverse side effects from what they're proposing to have. And so all of those studies will hopefully be implemented as they approach that with a vaccine, and they have to determine how effective it is. You know, is it a vaccine like the flu vaccine, where is COVID-19 something that's going to change a little each year, like the influenza, and so there has to be a new vaccine developed? Those are still questions to be answered and addressed. But as they study those things, they'll try to address those as best as science can at this time.
Right. Well, I think that's all the questions we have from everyone that joined on the call today. So where's the best place to get up-to-date information from the Utah County Health Department?
Well, you can go to our website, which is health.utahcounty.gov, and get information, or you can go to the state website, which is coronavirus, one word, coronavirus.utah.gov. And either place will have, the state website has a lot more information than ours does, of course, with more resources to do that. Another good location is the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, cdc.gov. They've got a lot of information and guidelines for employers and businesses. And again, we want everybody to have success and have businesses that work as profitably and safely as they can.
And we actually link, we have a resource page on the Chamber website that has links to all of those resources, as well as specific links for businesses as well. So you're welcome to hop on and look at all the different resources we have available there. Well, Ralph, we appreciate your time today. And obviously, as people have more questions, I'm sure more questions will come.
That's great. That's what we're happy. Again, best wishes in all the businesses and all that they're doing, all their efforts. Again, I will reiterate, I think the best ideas come from businesses themselves. They're the ones that really are innovative and find ways. They desire to protect their employees, and they want to provide the best service for their customers. And so they're my kudos to all the businesses in your area and throughout Utah County.
So I guess that brings up one other question. So when we're talking about masks and we're talking about disinfectants, sometimes those go in short supply. So as a county, do you have a recommendation on where they can go for those types of resources?
Well, you know, sometimes some of the sanitizing wipes are very difficult to get. Again, you know, hopefully you can find, if you want to use bleach, you can find some bleach and gloves somewhere to do that. As far as masks go, you know, they seem to be available right now. I know I've seen them in even the grocery stores for masks, or you can make your own. If you go to the cdc.gov website, it actually shows you how to make a mask out of an old t-shirt that you can do. So, you know, if you don't have sewing skills, it's really just a matter of cutting the pattern out to make the mask.
Oh.
And so there's lots of options. You know, there's people who are making masks and selling them. There's a mask for every Utahn incentive going on to try to provide masks. And so I think hopefully if you need a mask, there's a way to get a mask.
So that brings up the question, you know, someone mentioned, I heard that a t-shirt doesn't really work very well as a mask. So what does the mask do?
Well, probably the main purpose of the mask is to keep the grossest particles that come out from our respiratory system contained, so that if we were to sneeze or cough, at least some of the droplets would be confined. It certainly doesn't solve everything. Again, that's why the social distancing is very important, and trying to maintain that distance, but it helps. A mask helps. As much as anything, it protects other people from you if you have something. You know, we're in cold and flu season. We're in allergy season, and a person, if they have COVID-19 with allergies, you know, you sneeze a lot when you have allergies, and it's important to probably contain those as much as we can. And it provides a small amount of protection maybe from someone else as well. But I don't think anybody says a mask is the answer to everything. You know, that's why we stress the social distancing. But if there's a place where you can't social distance, it's a good idea to have a mask on.
Do you foresee sorry, a couple other questions are coming up, but do you foresee, even when we go into the green, that there's going to be recommendations of distancing, or do you feel like once we go into that clear area, most people just go back to life as normal?
Well, they talk about it as a new normal, right? That we approach things in a different way. Maybe our handshakes or elbow bumps or fist bumps or something like that, and we're still kind of cognizant of social distancing, and probably some will continue to wear masks, particularly those who are particularly sensitive to negative outcomes from this particular virus, or elderly, those who are in long-term care facilities. I can see that in long-term care facilities, there'll probably be continued restrictions on visiting, and to try to protect that population, which is very important that we protect, and along with those who are immunocompromised or have heart disease or diabetes or other conditions, lung conditions, asthma that this may have a particularly difficult effect on. So, yeah, so they call it the new normal. I guess we'll see what the new normal looks like when we get there. So.
And I think I've got one or two people on here from like a hair school or hair salon. Any specific type of direction, even for people going to get their haircut, should they be concerned, or are there extra precautions that industry needs to take?
Well, personal services are those services where it's very hard to social distance or physical distance, such as getting a haircut, your nails done, or some other type of salon type of service. And so, in those cases, the guidelines are the order from the governor, which he includes, is that those providing the service need to have a mask on and should have a mask on. It's highly recommended that those who are getting the service also have a mask on, but it's a little hard to have your beard trimmed if you have a mask on, right? And so they said that in those cases, it's good that you can go ahead and remove the mask for that period of time. But again, the governor's, for employees, as you read that, it's kind of required that you have the mask on. For those who are coming in, it's highly recommended. For the rest of us, I guess. But I think most hair salons that I've heard of have been using the masks, and hopefully that's been working out okay for them. Again, it's hard if you have a mask that ties behind your ears and you need to get your hair cut behind your ears. Obviously, the mask has got to be removed for a short period of time anyway. So yeah, but I think most salons have a good way of dealing with that. They're concerned about their customers and doing their best to protect them.
Yeah. Well, I think that we've wrapped everything up once again. Got through all those extra questions. And again, we appreciate your time. We're moving forward as best we can. We're encouraging everyone to kind of get out there a little bit more, but do business with our local businesses. We had these government funding mechanisms put in place, but that only goes so long for so far. And so really we need to all work together to get back to this new normal that we're talking about, but help the economy recover as quickly as possible. So, and the economy, the way we do business won't ever be the same again, I don't think. And so when you say a new normal, it really is a new normal for all aspects of most people, I think, and how they do business, how they live their lives. So it'll be interesting to see when we get into that green area, what that means for sure. So thanks again for your time. And I know Christina, I don't know if you are able to.
I'm here.
Okay. With her low bandwidth, unfortunately, but.
Yes, I'm kind of here.
So she's normally able to really add a lot to the conversation. Unfortunately, our technology has kept her a little quiet this time. So, but again, thanks everyone for coming, and we'll have this on our YouTube channel. We'll make it available for people to watch. And again, if you have any questions specifically for Ralph, you're welcome to send him an email. Ralph, what is your email?
It's Ralph at ralph@utahcounty.gov. So.
And I'm just going to type that in there real quick, utahcounty.gov. And so yeah, thanks again for your time. We appreciate it. We appreciate everyone hopping on the call today. We wish you all a good week as we move towards Memorial Day next Monday.
Yes, happy Memorial Day to all, and best for your businesses. Thank you.
Thank you again. You have a good day.
Thank you very much, Ralph.
You bet.